Hello and welcome to this weekly webinar series, Global Franchise Forum. My name is Sachin Maria and I'm the President for Franchise India. And it's a great honor and pleasure to have you all along with two of our distinguished guests this Friday evening in India. Every Friday we'll be having this 1 hour discussion with some of the global leaders in franchising business and discuss on global franchising and this rapidly growing and fast changing world of franchise businesses around the world. Franchising, as you all would know, has a very local opportunity, local objective, but it also has a very large impact on our global businesses. And it kind of bridges the gap between these local businesses and global businesses in a very legitimate and a structured manner, wherein large companies like McDonald's, Pepsi, Subways are built on this franchise framework. Very little has been done, especially in Asia, on globalization of brands, and this initiative cannot be best started without these two distinguished guests. This evening I have Mr. Albert Kong, who's undisputedly a leader in Asia, and I have Gaurav Maria, who's our chairman and a leading Asiawide franchise. And between both these gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we have over 60 plus years of experience in Asian franchise. And simply put, they both have been the most strongest pillars when it comes to Asiawide franchise. A quick introduction about Albert. Albert has over 30 plus years of experience in Asian franchising. He's also on the board of World Franchise Council, and he has 70 plus strategic partners across 50 nations. He has produced a book, co-authored it along and published by LexisNexis. And he's also one of the publishers who has a very successful bilingual franchise magazine, which has been running since 1994. And it was for longest period the only franchise magazine all international brands, Asian brands used to refer to as Bible. So without much ado, I welcome Albert and Gaurav. A quick hello to the community here.
Albert, I think you should start first. You are my senior, and I remember the time where it all started. The first show I did in Singapore, and this was the first time we were everything. He was already the rock star of the game, So we all have learned from you, Albert. So over to you. You start with your viewpoint, and then I'll tell Sachin to take up some questions for you.
Sure. Thank you, Gaurav and Sachin. Well, when I first met Gaurav, I had a lot of hair, so yeah, I'm 64 now. So that explains the 31 years that I've been franchising. Do allow me to just share some slides, just to get the juice flowing. I think all of us will probably get more out of this from the Q&A. So, allow me maybe 15-20 minutes to just go through my slides. I'll share with you my thoughts. The slides are actually a response to the questions sent by Sachin earlier. Like I said, after you have heard from me and from Gaurav, then we can go into Q&A. Thank you.
Sure.
I don't know whether I got my Hindi right, but anyway, nowadays you can Google everything, but I'm not sure whether it's accurate. Yeah. Okay, so I think the phrase isolation economy has been bantered around everywhere. No thanks to COVID-19. Okay. And I mean, I was just telling Sachin that today is day one of the opening up of phase 2. where people can start going to their barber and, you know, can go to restaurants, but with a lot of so-called new normal measures. What are the new normal measures? You know, safe distancing, you know, washing of hands, hand sanitizers everywhere. People have to wear masks, gloves, etc., etc. And then the acronyms WFH is also now a household name, which is working from home. And HBL is home-based learning, you know. So this is a new normal, yeah. So I think then the question is, so what do franchise companies, or even whether you're franchise or not franchise, so how do you handle this new normal, right? So I just share very quickly about what Singapore has done. Of course, all this you can get from our government website, you know. So we have been badly affected. The Ministry of Trade and Industry has downgraded our GDP growth from a -4 to -1 to -7 to -4. So another 3% out, you know. And then a lot of industries are affected, including outward-oriented sectors like manufacturing, wholesale trade, transportation, and what have you. And clearly also people in retail, because, you know, people on a semi-lockdown, people are not going out, you know. So clearly the retailers and the restaurateurs are all affected. And kindergartens and enrichment centers are all affected because parents don't want their children to be infected by the virus, right? So based on preliminary estimates, the Singapore government thinks that the unemployment rate will rise to 3.3. You know, we always had it at maybe 1% at most, you know, so it's quite frightening, yeah. Now then, because of this COVID, a lot of worries and anxieties, so a lot of jobs will be lost. I know of a bunch of people who have suffered pay cuts already. Fresh graduates are worried about not getting jobs, you know. And as we know, people who are elderly, they are more vulnerable to the virus. So people are also worried about the parents. So in general, I think there is, I don't like to use the word depressive, but the mood is not as sunny, yeah? Okay, now, then luckily for us in Singapore, the government has been giving all sorts of grants, and they have worked with industry bodies like the Singapore Business Federation and with the Singapore Franchise Association on how to make landlords reduce their rent, on talking to banks about not chasing all these SMEs for their, you know, mortgage and the interest on their loans, you know, and actually having a moratorium on, you know, even franchisors who find that their franchisees are not paying their royalties have been urged to, you know, just hands off, you know, let their franchisees sort of recoup, have some breathing space, you know. So all these are being discussed and been agreed upon, okay. So the 3 C's used by the government is they want to make sure that businesses have cash flow and that costs are taken care of and the credit is there, okay, so that businesses survive. Because the last thing a country wants is to have a lot of jobless people, because that can create a lot of chaos, okay. So that's that much I will share about the COVID, yeah. But like I said, very luckily, everybody, the unions, the government, the companies are all working together to ensure that we will get through this and emerge stronger, okay. So this slide is to tell you where you can see all these numbers that I talk about, okay. So all these are, the government has put aside US $90 billion, you know, to help the economy. So I think for a small nation, there's a lot of money to put aside to help everybody get back to their feet, yeah. And at the association side, as Gaurav and Sachin know, I'm one of the founding members of the Singapore Franchise Association. There's a name change. It used to be called SIFA, which is Singapore International Franchise Association. Then we changed it to Franchising and Licensing Association. Anyway, we as an association want to help our members. So we have been doing a lot of webinars. I think to date, over the last 3 months, we've probably done 20 webinars already, and more to come. Just to keep the morale high, just to let our members know that, hey, you know, we are here, we listen to you, and should we want to negotiate with some bodies as a group, we will do it. Yeah. So this is just a screenshot of one of the webinars that I hosted for the association. Okay, now, one of the questions Sachin sent me is the foundation for building a versatile franchise that can last and thrive. So this is not rocket science. I have always maintained, and all my clients will tell you, I always say that you always go back to basics. When your basics are wrong, everything is wrong, you know. So for example, you know, whatever you're selling, whether you are in childcare, whether you are doing cafe or biryani rice, you know, or you are doing computer training, I think you have to go back to the piece, you know, is your product or service wanted, you know, is you know, of course, when you go overseas, PEST come into play. The acronym PEST stands for the political environment, the economic environment, the social environment, and of course, technology. I think no surprise, when Korea and China's relation were bad, you know, the Korean brands in China were all boycotted, you know. So I just read the news, you know, about some boycotting of China-made goods. So politics is normal. It's part of life. It happens. Yeah. Then the price, you know, all these are very important. So I won't belabor all these points, but if your P's are not right, then your franchise may not thrive, because, you know, another very clear example. In Singapore, there are quite a number of my clients, they sell pork, you know, but clearly you can't bring it to Saudi Arabia, and you have a very small audience, let's say in Indonesia, you know, so that's just product, right? You know, so all this, you know, I'm sure you will know, so I don't want to belabor this point. Now, another set of things to consider will be the letter C. Okay, so earlier on was P, now it's the letter C. So very clearly, the concept, you know, for me, I will not take on a client who doesn't have the track record, or the concept is just so mundane and so ordinary. It's like every street, there are 5 or 6 competitors. There's no unique selling proposition. And worse still, it's not replicable. I give an example. You know, my company, I've been approached by a heart surgeon, you know, and he asked me, he said, Albert, I want to franchise my business. So I asked him, I said, who are your franchisees? He said, heart surgeons. So I said, so why do the heart surgeons need to join you? You know, so it's not as replicable, because you can't just walk down the streets and get someone to be a heart surgeon and to be a franchisee, you know. And the other thing is the long term, whether it's long term or not. If you are doing, let's say, computer repair, or, well, not computer, if you are doing, let's say, fax machine repair, then I'll be very reluctant. In fact, I will be unprofessional if I were to take on your project, because I think maybe by next year or even now, nobody is using fax machine anymore. You know? So it's a sunset industry, you know. So another C will be consumers. You know, if you are so niche, I give it one good example, navel piercing. I think, you know, 20 years ago, a lot of people, the rebellious ones, you know, they like to pierce their navel with a ring or something like that. It's very fashionable. And girls who wear bikinis like to show off their navel with a ring in it. Yeah. But that base of people are very, very small, you know, so it's very hard. Even in Singapore, for the longest time, when I was growing up at least, anyone with tattoo on their body is considered a rogue, a gangster, you know. So, of course, all of you know that in America, the tattooing salons everywhere, and some people try to franchise it. But the consumer base is too small in Singapore. If you try to franchise it, you will go hungry, okay? Well, another one is cash. So if your profit margin is very, very small and you try to franchise it, your franchisee will not survive, because if you are getting so little and you are charging your franchisee royalty and of course franchise fee, they won't survive, right? And then I mentioned about country's condition before, culture, religion, and then the contract. In countries like China, Vietnam, Australia, the law is very strict on franchising. You have the cooling off period. Your franchisee must, or you must ensure that your franchisee has gotten a third party consultant, to help them think through stuff. They must be proof, etc., etc. Whereas Singapore, the law, there's no franchise specific law. So we are very, a very friendly, very business friendly country. So then another one will be communications. I will just give an example. Subway, when they first translated their name into Mandarin, it was good in Beijing and the northern part. But when we went to the southern part, Fujian, the Chinese name for Subway actually wasn't very pleasant. It's the same in Taiwan. Taiwan is also a Fujian-speaking, economy. So, and then in Singapore, most of the Chinese in Singapore are Fujianese. Their ancestors are Fujianese. So the brand name of Subway is terrible, So they actually had to change it, So all these things can affect, okay? And then finally, when you look for franchisees, I call them candidates. You have to ensure that they are committed. You don't want, someone who is buying it just for his daughter or his son, just to spend time because, the children are pestering the father all the time, and things like that. I'm sure we all know of many rich people, let's say, in certain countries that are brand collectors. They commit to open maybe 50 stores, let's say over 10 years, but they open 2 stores and forever it's just 2 stores. So the potential of the market is not exploited. So actually there's an opportunity cost there. Yeah. Okay. So common mistakes made by franchisees. Again, no rocket science. People go into it with no passion. I have people who come to me and the question they ask me is, "Oh, but what's the most profitable franchise?" And then I will say, I can't answer you because, what is profitable may not be a reality after that. Because I give an example. We built MindChamp. MindChamp is public listed now in Singapore. It's a very strong brand. They will be, the owner will be very reluctant to talk to you if, the first question you ask is how much money I can make. They would like to know that you love children. In fact, you have children. You're passionate about children and things like that. Okay. So, and then the second mistake is people underestimating the cost. I often tell my franchisor clients, I say, look, try to frighten the franchisee a little bit and ask this franchisee, because they come with a mind that is honeymoon forever, and that they will make money straight away. So ask them, if you don't make money for 2 years, will you carry on? And you'll find that a lot of them will walk away because they think that, within a year, they'll see their money back and they're gonna, laugh all the way to the bank, So because there are a lot of costs that you may not, have foreseen, okay? Because business is such, and then inadequate research. Like I said, a lot of people go in with the gut, or they go by hearsay. If they will do more research, they may have found that, maybe in that country, the turnover or the overall revenue is only so many $1 million, and the big players already captured, say, 60-70% of the market, etc., etc. And not speaking to existing franchisees. I think for a lot of Asians, maybe they are bashful or they feel shy, or they are overly secretive. I think what is good is for you to hear from the horse's mouth. Because if you were to ask the franchisor will sing his own song and say, yeah, I'm very good. You know, all my franchisees make a lot of money. You know, I'm the best franchisor. I give the best support. But when you will talk to the franchisees, you know, who are facing the customers every day, that's when the truth will be told, right? You know, and then again, we have franchisees who go in thinking that, you know, they can run the business the way they want to, and then they get a shock when they have to ask the franchisor for permission to do a lot of things, to localize, to advertise, you know, etc., etc., and that the SOP is very stringent, you know, yeah. And then another failure will be not actually asking for legal advice. Some people want to save money. You know, they read the contract themselves and say, it's simple English, you know, but we all know lawyers, you know, just a comma here or a semicolon there can make a big difference to the entire clause, right? You know, and then finally, some people try to run before they can walk, meaning they commit to the franchisor that they're going to open 3, 5, 7, you know, where maybe by the second outlet they run out of money or they run out of energy, you know, and they're not willing to commit to, you know, employing more people. So there are a lot of things like that. Now, there's this little thing there called franchise ED. This is by Kelly Mouse. Kelly used to be from Griffith University, and they used to be an Asia Pacific Franchise Excellence Center there. And I was a board member there for 7 years. So she has this software whereby a prospective franchisee can click and do a so-called test on whether, you know, he should be a franchisee or not, you know. So it's very interesting. It used to be free. I think Kelly will still give it free to anyone who asks. But anyway, if you are interested, I can find you the link and pass it on to you. Okay, I think down to my second last slide. Sachin also asked me about some successful brands in this part of the world. I mentioned Mind Champs just now, which is public listed now. They're doing very well. They do kindergarten enrichment centers, right? What makes them different is they really take care of all the P's. You know, for example, on their board, they have neuroscientists, you know, you know, so it makes it very sophisticated. You know, all their P's have a hand in them, you know. So that is a niche itself, yeah. And then the MB is from Malaysia. MB stands for Mary Brown. Mary Brown is, to some people, is just another fried chicken. But Mary Brown is very clever. They pound on their advantage. They claim, and they have not been challenged yet, they claim to be the world's largest halal chicken franchise. Okay? And they go to a lot of places where KFC doesn't go. No? They go to Afghanistan, they go to Xinjiang, where western part of China, where it's all Muslims, you know. So they're clever. They sell the Muslim thing, although it's owned by a Chinese, Malaysian Chinese family, the Liao family. You know, I've known them for 30 years. Yeah. So they play on their strengths. They don't fight KFC, and they don't claim the things KFC claim. They do things that KFC doesn't do. Okay. Then MK. MK is a public listed company in Thailand. Similarly, they are very good in reaching out to the audience. Their jingle, after you hear it a few times, the jingle actually just keep playing in your mind. So although it's in Thai, I remember how the jingle sound like, and I can sing it, you know. So they are very good in that, and they serve very good, fresh, authentic Thai food, you know. So they've done extremely well in Thailand, and they're franchised into Vietnam, you know, and to Japan and Russia. And then finally, I share one more, which is Jollibee. Earlier on, I was telling Sachin, I said that McDonald's is nothing in Philippines compared to Jollibee. Jollibee's sales are, if I recall, the last time I checked was 5 times or maybe even more, 5 or 7 times more than McDonald's. Why? Because Jollibee makes their burger, I mean, it's just like a burger joint. They make their burger very tasty to the Filipinos. I mean, if you have Filipino friends, you'll find that most of the cuisine in the Philippines, they are a little bit sweet and sour. Okay, the sweet and sour thing is sort of the common factor in their cuisine. And Jollibee is able to do that. And they are very cleverly, they go to places like California and certain parts of Middle East where there's a big Filipino community, either working there as foreign workers or living there as migrants. You know? So again, they play on their strengths. Okay. Again, if you will look at the P's and the C's, they applied those very well. Okay, so I'm gonna end. So just whatever it is, just beware of trends. You know, I think if you read all sorts of reports around the world, you know, whether it's by McKinsey or by, you know, Euromonitor, they say, okay, now people want things fast. You know, they want to order in a simple manner. They don't want it to be too complicated. People want to live forever. You know, and then technology and digitization is there. You must gain the trust of the consumer. Okay, because people will share information through the social media about how bad or how untrustworthy you are very quickly. Okay, then there's this thing about the green consumerism or environmental concerns, and then of course finally globalization. Okay, just one last chart. This chart is applicable in many countries. All right, so you can see on the right employment. Okay, then the horizontal thing is the retail sales. So it's very clear. For retail sales that have dropped very harshly is clothing and furniture, you know, and then supermarkets are still doing well and the employment is still good, you know, whereas all those that are doing badly, the employment can drop by -20, -40, -60. This is by the US Census Bureau, and I think it's applicable to many countries. Okay, for example, in Vietnam, I just got this report this morning. It's the same. If you were to look at it, the Vietnamese consumers are looking at they're going to spend money on food and essential goods and health products. Then there's no talk about fashion and what I feel, because those are not essential and not important, because people are worried about losing their job. People are worried that the world economy is going to get bad, you know. So just being aware will help you think of how to overcome, you know, the mindset and the concerns of consumers. Okay, with that, I will close and I'll pass it to Sachin. This thing about adaptation. Just make sure you adapt and be cognizant of what's happening in the environment. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's my slide. So I'll stop here and Gaurav, you take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. It's always great to hear from you, and it shows that how much detailing you put in everything you do. And that's something which I've been always impressed by you in terms of your hard work in contributing to the sustainability of business models. I think in the entire Asian market, as Sachin mentioned, that you have a huge contribution in not only for your own home market, which is Singapore, but I think across Asia. I see two very important contributions you've done. One in the education of franchising, which I think you tirelessly worked for last so many years to continue to give best practices and so on and so on. And this is one of the reasons we wanted to start with you to come and you've come to India many times and spoken in our forums and our sessions. So, and always shared all information transparently to the audience. And the second thing which I think you've done is that there are a lot of great concepts in Asia, which we've always seen, and they've always been what I call a little bit of a phobia to remain in their own country comfort. They have taken more than any time. They're not as wild as I call American companies, which are, before they even have the first 2 stores or 3 stores, they start going global. And Asian companies are generational companies, and they have stayed in their own region for many years. And we go and see in Asia, meet a lot of companies which are 4th generation, 5th generation, great concepts, but they've always limited themselves to their home markets, and some have not even franchised, and they've been running some own their retail stores, and it has been a very, very big difficulty for us to sometimes convince these companies to go. So I think a great contribution from your side. I pick up few things from your presentation, and I would like to add, and at this stage, I think there are three things which is very important for our franchise industry across markets, across nations, is what I call CAS theory, which means that how they would see C stands for change cycle. So I think the companies, especially franchise companies, which are very traditionally driven, and especially it's very difficult for them because they are not like a one equity business. They have franchises under them. Even if the company wants to change the model, they have a limitation because their franchises are invested and they have capex been deployed, so they cannot change very fast. And today's time, change has become integral, and the change is happening on products, how the people consuming. It is happening on the processes, how the processes used to run in earlier days, now how they're running, and also on the priorities of consumer, how they want to have the product. Which means a clear example is that if you were an complete offline company, how would you go online, and how do you still accommodate your franchisee in between? What is the role of the franchisee, and so on and so forth. So this is really runs in companies' mind. So what is the change cycle you're seeing? And this is my first part of the piece. And the second is, I think, adaptability. I feel that a lot of companies build their business models, and and this is one of the areas which I'm impressed by American franchise companies. So they make some simple models like Subway, which is extremely adaptable to any part of the world. Asian companies, I found that they've not built business models which are extremely adaptable. So how do we really make a very strong, adaptable business models, and what you would recommend to especially young franchise organizations, how they can build? And third, I think this is a time of sustainability. I don't know how much this pain is going to last, how they re-engineer their business model from CAPEX or from an OPEX viewpoint. At this stage, people want lighter businesses, efficient businesses, less manpower businesses, more automized businesses. So how do we really create this CAS in business? So which means change cycles, adaptability, and a strong sustainability to re-engineer their business model. So over to you, Albert, and what is your viewpoint on this, and how do you see the changes, or any other example you would like to give it to everybody in terms of you saw a company overnight change themselves and adapted, and especially if something has been done last 3 months, which has come to your side, will be very good for our audience to know.
Thank you, Gaurav. I think I can share one or two examples about adaptability. I have a client called Buying Artisan. They specialize in leather products and expensive stationery gifts, And during the COVID-19, when nobody is buying gifts because it's not an essential thing, the lady boss, Winnie, was very witty. She was thinking very hard, and she said she realized that a lot of people are buying small hand sanitizers and putting them into their bags, the ladies especially. And so she quickly looked around and found the ideal size that a lot of people don't mind carrying, because it can go into the bag or the pocket easily. So because she is a leather good manufacturer, expensive leather gifts, she actually came up with a pouch that can accommodate the hand sanitizer, and it became a very attractive gift. And it's a very suitable gift because you put your hand sanitizer to it. So people buy it and give it to their loved ones so that they can display, or they can put the hand sanitizer, which can be of any brand, into a very nice looking pouch. So it becomes an accessory, it becomes a gift, and that's what they do. Similarly, a good example is IKEA. I think all of us know IKEA. So a lot of people are not shopping at IKEA during the COVID, but IKEA very cleverly in order to keep people remembering their brand, they actually shared the recipe of their famous Swiss balls, Swiss meatballs. I think IKEA, in many of their furniture stores around the world, at their cafe, one of their most famous dish is the Swiss meatballs. So what they did was through social media, they shared the recipe of meatballs, urging mothers and fathers to make the meatballs at their own home. But the way they write the instruction actually makes everybody loves IKEA, because IKEA is well known in teaching people how to very quickly assemble their furniture together. So they play on the strength. They come up with the steps that very easily help even people who don't cook to learn how to cook the Swiss meatballs. So again, I think turning a crisis into an opportunity to brand build, to make people remember you, is adaptability, you know. So I think, I'm sure you have many other examples. I think these also play on the P. You know, P, I tell you, I mentioned the letter P, right? P can be the product or service, the pricing, it can be promotion, you know, it can be the place or the locations, but it can also stand for personnel. So you also want to have good people in your company that are adaptable, that are constantly thinking of innovation, you know. Sustainability. Now, just one example of, I have a client called Crown Coffee. So, you know, they realize that, you know, Singapore labor market is always going to be challenging. You know, that's why we actually have almost 2 million foreign workers in Singapore, including the domestic helpers, you know. So, and Singaporeans Singapore citizens are pampered. They don't really like to serve. So this Crown Coffee boss, he actually, he didn't invent it, but he's an IT chap at the same time. He actually has a robotic barista, you know, so that he doesn't have to rely on people making his coffee. And the robotic barista has all this AR, AI element in it. It's on face recognition. All you need to do is go once, and the robot barista will remember you and remember what you ordered, you know, and when you ordered it and what size, you know. And whilst the robot is making your coffee, on the screen, there will be advertisement about other things, you know, maybe the spaghetti that you can buy in the same cafe, you know, etc., you know. And of course, he very cleverly, the owner very cleverly tell everybody that his beans are, you know, from farms that the farmers are taken care of, and that all the used coffee bean powder will be used in his garden behind, or given to farmers as compost, you know. So again, every little thing that you communicate makes you more trustworthy, makes the customers want to support you, because they think that they are also playing a part in keeping the world greener, you know. So it's also a sustainability selling point. Yeah, thank you.
Very valuable. I think I'll try to bring in Sachin now. Sachin, your questions for Albert or your general remarks.
Generally, I want to ask both of you, when we've seen a lot of, Gaurav also mentioned about it, that there's a lot of export of franchisees, which franchise concepts, which happens from America, but we've not seen a lot of cross-border trade within Asia. While I would imagine that there'll be a lot more alignment to concepts within India, Singapore, China, and others. So Albert, your thoughts on what could be the reason there?
Okay, sure. Actually, objectively speaking, number one, everybody knows that when they franchise out of their country, they go to the neighboring countries first. because especially when you're new in franchising, you don't want to have a franchisee that are thousands of miles away, because by the time you get there, your franchisee would have died. You know, you can't have him or her, right? And it's impractical. It'll cost you too much money just to support someone so far away. So number one, same with Asian franchises. You find that in Singapore, the likes of Bread Talk, the likes of Jumbo Seafood, you know, the likes of Mind Champs, their franchisees are normally in Southeast Asia, you know. So far, not at all strangely, the first franchisee of most of my clients, most Singapore brands are Indonesia. And you say, why not Malaysia? Well, again, if you do your homework, you will find that it's not by fluke or by chance. It so happened that there are many rich Indonesians who have apartments in Singapore, and they send their children here to study. And many times, of course, you know, they have a lot of money here. So our banks have a lot of their money, right? And not just Indonesia, but also from other countries, because our banking sector is very mature and it has a good reputation. So because they come here so often, they get familiar with the brands here, right? So when they get familiar with the brands here and they start to like it, they'll say, okay, since you know, I like it, I'll bring back to Indonesia. My hometown is in Jakarta or in Surabaya or whatever, you know. So there are brands. Singapore brands normally go to Indonesia and then they go to Malaysia, you know. China, yes, but not so many. The challenges are also you know, bigger.
I'm gonna come to China in a while, but I generally feel that it's more about popularity, is what you're saying, that, you know, there's a lot of community and also trade opportunity, which
and familiarity. I think you know, similarly, you know, if you are a big country like India or China, or because the franchise will take a while to saturate your own nation first. You know, why do you want to run to another country when you still have so much opportunities within your own country, right? So logically speaking, is a lot of cost is so high and rentals are still very high that affect it. So what I'm trying to say, Sachin, is yes, they are so-called inter-ASEAN movement for franchises. Okay, it's just not so apparent. I think we are not like the Americans. The Americans are very good in singing and dancing. They will tell the whole world what they're doing, and they are more aggressive. They are more aggressive in selling. You know, you go to any American booth, wow, they will sit you down and talk and talk and talk. You know, whereas Asians are a little bit less aggressive.
but that wouldn't be true for the Chinese brand, because Chinese brands are all over now. Gaurav, you wanna take up, add something here?
Yeah, sure. So I think you're right. We've been also trying at our end to really popularize franchising between Asian countries, and while it looks like one big continent, very well connected, people travel very often and things like that. But I will tend to agree with Albert that there is a lot of peculiarity in the markets, you know, so they're very complex. Even Singapore and Malaysia looks like they are like a twin country, work and depend on each other. They have, you know, relationship which is very, very bonded and a strong dependability on as each other nations and across people working with the entire thing. But you'll see a lot of brands, Malaysian brands, which have not done well in Singapore or vice versa. And because of, I think, buying behaviors, culture, and so on and so forth. And also, I feel that there are very few effort we have done in Asia. Now I'm talking more from a franchise consulting or a, you know, a supplier company and so on and so forth. So we've not really built integrated platforms which I think Americans were good at. I know they created a lot of global platforms where almost everybody, and we all, I mean, Albert and us, and we all jump into each other when there's a big event happens in US, but we have really not credibly come together as Asia, and all of us, and this is still a wide open opportunity that we are 1/3 of the larger population of the world living there, and now well-to-do, and everybody is talking about this part is the largest consumption market across board. And I feel that when I was in Seoul, I see opportunities which are world-class. I mean, why would these cafes and things like that, which can actually take on with any other opportunity in the world? Singapore, obviously, we all know has world-class concept. They really detail out too much in that. So I feel that this is shadow of two things. One, complexity within the countries and their cultures and relations and so on and so forth. And second is, I think, not much of effort being done. But it started to happen. It started to happen because of like Singapore, which is a great body. I should take this as a mention because they have very strongly encouraging franchise export. And I think Albert himself has been part of that and encouraging a lot of franchise export. Sustainable export. It's right that you should not, international strategy is not just you decide one day and want to go to another country and for a few $100,000 you sell your brand. And if you don't have a long-term program to really make not sure that you enter those markets, but you have a very strong commitment towards that market, which would mean commitment of your time, commitment of resources, commitment of product engineering, because it takes sometimes companies anything from 1 year to 2 years to really engineer and adapt a product for that market. Then only I was in the company which Albert mentioned in Jollibee's office in Manila. And I spent the time with the founder. One of the sons actually moved to US because they were very strongly looking at US as a strong market for Jollibee. And they actually shifted and opened up their office. And one of the sons actually started living in US as a part of their commitment for the next 10 to 20 years. So they said, we don't want to do anything else, but we are now looking at one big international market. So our commitment is very, very large. So unless and until you're committed with the mindset that you need to now go in a very strong international plan, and you will be investing into building capabilities to support diverse markets, then only international is for you. I also feel that there is an opportunity for all of us to really create also credible platforms where we can have more dialogue on bilateral trade happening between these countries for franchise growth.
So role of international franchise consultant, I think American concepts actually build on this great framework of international franchise consultants. Back 15 years back, 20 years back, there was a huge effort towards it. How's it shaping up in Asia? I mean, your thoughts on it.
Okay, if I hear you correctly, you're asking me about the role of franchise consultants in bringing brands overseas. Is that what you're, okay?
More importantly, from Asia ecosystem.
Okay, so in Asia, I have partners almost everywhere except Brunei and Laos, and where else? Yeah, so I'm continuing to of course, in South Asia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, I don't have strategic partners yet. But as Gaurav has said correctly, I think the Americans or the Europeans can object all they want, but the next decade and maybe several decades will be Asia's, it's our show, because the economies in the eastern part of the globe are hungrier and they have more population. And I believe we'll probably have more scientists and engineers than the West, So the future is very bright. I will continue to build on the network, and it's not just for fun. It's the whole idea is that when a broker understands, when a consultant understands the territory that he's in, he will be able to suss out what are the opportunities that will, that can be exploited, For example, like I said just now, if I were to bring home instead, I think all of us know Home Instead, right? Home Instead is an elder care franchise from America. If I were to sign a franchise agreement, a brokerage agreement with them, and I say, yes, I will bring you to different parts of Asia, my Indonesian partner, his name is Xiangyi will say, no, this brand will not work in Indonesia because for what Home Instead charges per day, I can get a full-time worker for the whole month. So the cost is not something that the people here are willing to pay, even if they are rich, because they can get a full-time domestic maid, for a fraction of what is being charged. So because the local guy knows, I may not know, even though I go to Indonesia a lot, So I think choosing good partners is very important. If Xiangyi, my partner in Indonesia, is frivolous and he's just after commission and he doesn't care, and then he push it to the wrong party, I will not be doing Home Instead in America, the franchisor, any favor. Neither will I be doing the franchisee in Indonesia any favor, and our reputation will be ruined. So it really depends on the philosophy and also the quality of the people in the network. So the better the quality and the better track record, then you get better sales. So I, for one, believe that, and I tell all my franchisor clients, I said, if you have to convince someone to be your franchisee, you are already getting it wrong. You should just sit there and ask the guy, why do you want to be my franchisee? Not the other way around, and not say, okay, well, I'm having a promotion now. I normally charge 100,000 franchise fee. I'm going to give you at 70,000. Take it. If not, the offer is gone tomorrow. I don't do this because it's very, very dangerous. Thank you.
Add something to this, and we'll take some questions.
Yeah, so it's absolutely what Albert has said. It's very important that we do selection over sales. So franchising is not a sales function; it's a selection function. And I think all the seasoned consultants would understand the importance of that. How do you build, invest more time on building systems and capabilities and compelling reason why somebody would invest with you versus putting your time in pushing people to invest into an opportunity. And I think there are a lot of credible consultants available globally and who have contributed to the success of franchising. And I think one of the areas which why international franchising really works is because of the credibility of the consultants, because they bring in a lot of their learnings, their understandings to the clients and to their franchise brands. And Albert himself has been very, very instrumental in doing that. So even I would encourage Albert. Now we are encouraging in India a lot of Indian companies ready to go overseas, and some of them would like to reach you and talk to you if they want to really do Singapore, because as an Indian company we also see two destinations, immediate destinations always. One is Dubai and one is Singapore, and so these are two markets where every Indian desire to be there, and then obviously London and New York, but Singapore and the markets like that is always an aspiration. So I think especially a lot of good companies and good tech-based businesses are very credible in India, and they are ready for taking in Asia. So we will obviously reach out to you whenever they have interest on that. Sachin, over to you.
Yeah, so I'll take some questions. We've got a lot of questions. We'll try and sort of see if we can take up. So we've got a question from Azhar Bashir, and he's specifically looking at the COVID situation we are all in. What's happening on the retail? And Albert's presentation spoke about gave some perspective, and he's also keen to know what are the opportunities in the digital franchise, or how does a offline franchise kind of get benefited from the online opportunity which is emerging. So both of you, if you can take that question. what's the scenario in Singapore and ASEAN countries when it comes to retail businesses, Albert?
Okay. Well, okay. In Singapore, a lot of money from the close to 90 over billion US dollars budget, a big chunk of it is going into helping all sorts of businesses from micro to small to medium enterprises and to even listed companies, whoever needs it to digitize, to upgrade and to use technology, you know. So like I mentioned just now, you know, one of my clients in coffee, he has gone into AI and AR using robotic baristas. So this, you know, O to O, meaning online to offline and offline to online, will not go away. You know, in fact, Singapore, objectively speaking, we have a minister, our foreign minister, Mr. Vivian Balakrishnan, is in charge of the Smart Nation initiative, you know. So we have a full minister who is very busy with foreign affairs, very capable man, very nice gentleman. He is in charge of this initiative. And the whole idea is to make the whole nation smart, meaning use technology, you know. So I think you can't get away from it. Whether you're selling bubble tea or running a tuition center or, you know, doing plumbing, you need to get online. You need to make use of, you know, WhatsApp. You need to make use of, you know, Zoom, whatever technology there is, you know, because if not, you will be redundant. You will lose the market. Yeah, that's my take on it. Maybe Gaurav.
We lost you, Albert, I think.
So he was referring to you. So, you know, on the offline business, what's the
online, offline, I think as Albert said, that it is would coexist, and while there would be a lot of changes the way consumer buys, you know, and I feel that in some markets, in some products, hyper local retail would grow. We're doing one new experiment in a product in India where we are doing you know, the stores like Amazon does in US, where there is no person attending the store. So it's a you know, a full technology based, AI based, and it would be done in your own apartment buildings, you know. So in societies there will be small grocery store. Every day morning it will be fed. So it's a manless store, no queue. You walk in, you pick up, you pay, and you walk out. So these are kind of new technologies would come. I feel that a lot of interface would be there. So retail is always about convenience and experience. And I think if you are able to continue to evolve these two things with all the security and other things that come in, I think retail is going to last. Some formats which are very primitive and have no ability to improve on their convenience and experience would not be able to survive. But a lot of emergence of new formats would come. You know, it's a cycle. We have seen the cycle, and we see the stores, and it's like a Orchard Street of Singapore, ever changing, right? So it's new brands keep coming in. They understand what people want and what people buy. There is a brand called Lululemon, you know, which thought 5-6 years back that people would like to be in comfort wear, and even they go to office wear this so to say comfort wear to offices. They never thought that this business would become so big for them now, with everybody in lockdown, you know. So everybody was in the comfort wear. Nobody was wearing business suits and ties. So you never know when the business would come to a tipping point and find his own audience and start doing it. I feel that retail, you might call me a little bit old school, but retail is going to stay. But the way it is going to be would change significantly in times to come.
So we've already run out of time, but we'll take one or two more questions because the conversation is going great. So is it a good time to invest? I mean, we know in recession, franchising grows. I mean, globally it's been proven. But a lot of our audience is asking that, you know, is it a good time to invest in a franchise business?
Okay, I'm not God, and I think reading into the crystal ball is a very strange thing to do. But I think all savvy businessmen will find opportunities. Even during a crisis, there's no perfect time. For example, during this crisis, I think a lot of us realize that those who specialize in takeaways, those that operate ghost kitchens or cloud kitchens, they're actually doing very well, because during the lockdown, people cannot go to a proper restaurant to eat, so they order. And those who never had to pay a lot of rental because they are sharing a kitchen in a cloud kitchen with some other operators, they actually make a lot of money. So and then the people who do a lot of sanitizing also make a lot of money. So I would think that after COVID-19, who knows, there may be another virus, and then everybody has to clean up their house again. So I think if you want to invest, if I were to so-called be so bold as to predict, I think commonsensically things related to cleanliness, things related to health, because people want to boost their immunity, right? Things related to helping people live a more in a safer manner. For example, I would imagine that because people don't want to touch surfaces, because viruses stay in surfaces for a long time. So things that are contactless, things that technology that use eyeball recognition or voice recognition, even through a mask, this will all have a very good future, So I will try to, be a fortune teller and using a bit of common sense and say what would be the things that are needed in future, and I'll invest in them. So if I know of let's say a health drink manufacturer, very small, but their drinks are really good and they use very natural, very fresh products, I will invest in them, because I will know that this will sell very well, because I will tell the whole world how how good it is in boosting immunity. And people all over the world, they want to live forever. They want to have good health. So there's a future in something like that. Maybe through a vending machine, maybe through some contactless kind of disposal, mechanism. But as long as you don't do it blindly, you should still invest, because that's how the world goes on. Yeah.
Review and then final word from both of you.
Fundamentally, for us, it's a little bit different, because we are a very unsecure society. I might use this word because unlike in a developed world, you still have government backing you and doing it. We are in a situation where businesses have to find their own way and surviving, and a lot of professionals will lose jobs. There is expected about 3 million people would lose jobs. So India, we have seen that franchising actually gets growth because of this compulsion that people have to do something for their living, and it might be a little bit of a opportunity for a country like India, because you're not in a comfort. When you are in developing world, like I'm seeing in everyday news in US, people are registering an unemployment because they know government has to take care of them. And we have nothing like that. So people have to find a way with whatever precaution they do, but they have to get back to business. So I feel that this is what the exciting part of developing worlds are, that they find opportunities in adversity sometimes in this case. So we see a franchising growing in India, and we're already seeing the signs of a lot of inquiries and a lot of people, especially micro businesses, not so big because people lack cash. And but I feel that the franchising will rise. And so that's where it would be. But I see that what you're saying, that there is a lot of categories also, which would be important, which we call positively impacted or low impacted industries. And there are many of them. And the people are creative, they would find their opportunities.
So we'll
hold Albert more for his. We have already taken his dinner time, and you cannot take away a Singaporean from a good food.
That's right. So thank you very much, Albert. It's been
one thing I miss is coming to Singapore and having some good food with you.
Okay, namaste. Thank you for having me. Yeah. All right. See you. Right. Bye bye.
thank you.